The problem with discovery is not what we find, it's what we're forced to unlearn. Because hidden in museum halls, locked away in vaults, and buried beneath layers of sediment are objects that challenge everything we thought we knew about human capability. Mechanisms that computed the heavens before electricity existed. Texts that survived millennia to rewrite religious history. Legal codes that shaped civilization itself. These are 5 real artifacts that refuse to fit comfortably into the past we've constructed. The Rosetta Stone. In 1799, French soldiers digging fortifications near the town of Rosetta, in Egypt's Nile Delta, unearthed a fragment of dark granodiorite that would fundamentally alter humanity's relationship with its own history. The stone was unremarkable in appearance, a broken slab measuring roughly 3.5 feet tall, weathered and incomplete. But carved across its surface were 3 distinct blocks of text, each written in a different script. The top section contained hieroglyphs, the sacred writing system of ancient Egypt that had been unreadable for more than 1,000 years. Below it, Demotic script, a cursive form of Egyptian used in everyday documents. And at the bottom, ancient Greek, a language scholars could still read fluently. What made this discovery unsettling was not the stone itself, but what it represented. For centuries, Egyptian hieroglyphs had remained impenetrable. Scholars knew the symbols existed. They could see them carved into temple walls and painted on papyrus scrolls. But without a key to their meaning, an entire civilization's written record remained locked away, reduced to decorative mystery. The Rosetta Stone changed that, because it contained the same decree written 3 times in 3 different scripts. It was issued in 196 BCE by priests honoring King Ptolemy V. The Greek text could be translated immediately. The Demotic was partially understood. The hieroglyphs were the puzzle. But even with this advantage, decipherment took decades. The breakthrough came from Jean-François Champollion, a French scholar who spent years analyzing the stone alongside other fragmentary texts. In 1822, he published his findings, demonstrating that hieroglyphs were not purely symbolic or mystical, as many had assumed. They were phonetic. They represented sounds, names, and grammatical structures. A fully functioning written language. What unsettles historians is how much was lost in the silence. For over 14 centuries, the voices of pharaohs, priests, merchants, and scribes had been rendered mute. Religious texts, medical treatises, literary works, legal records, all inaccessible. The Rosetta Stone didn't just unlock hieroglyphs. It reopened an entire civilization's inner life, revealing complexities in governance, theology, and daily existence that had been erased from collective memory. The stone itself is incomplete. The top portion is broken off. The hieroglyphic section is missing significant fragments. Scholars had to work with what remained, filling gaps through comparison with other inscriptions. Even now, debates continue over nuances in translation. The artifact that unlocked ancient Egypt is itself incomplete, a reminder that even our greatest keys to the past are fractured. The Antikythera Mechanism. In 1901, divers searching for sponges off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera discovered the wreck of an ancient cargo ship. Among the amphorae, statues, and corroded bronze fragments, they pulled up a mass of calcified gears and inscribed metal plates, fused together by centuries of seawater. At first, it appeared to be nothing more than debris. But when researchers began cleaning and examining the fragments, they realized they were looking at something that should not exist in the ancient world. The Antikythera Mechanism, as it came to be known, dates to around 100 BCE. It is a complex system of interlocking bronze gears housed in a wooden case, designed to track and predict astronomical phenomena with shocking precision. Modern X-ray imaging and CT scans have revealed at least 30 surviving gears. Though the original device likely contained more, these gears were cut with teeth of varying sizes, meshing together to simulate the irregular movements of celestial bodies. The mechanism could predict the positions of the sun, moon, and planets. It tracked the phases of the moon. It calculated eclipses years in advance. It even modeled the elliptical orbit of the moon, a detail that required an understanding of gravitational mechanics that wouldn't be formally described until Johannes Kepler in the 17th century. What makes this so difficult to reconcile is the level of engineering involved. The gears are miniaturized, precisely calibrated, and designed to interact in ways that require advanced mathematical knowledge. The device used differential gearing, a system where multiple inputs combine to produce a single output, the same principle used in modern car transmissions. This technology was not supposed to exist until the Industrial Revolution, more than 1800 years later. Inscriptions on the mechanism provide operating instructions and describe astronomical cycles, but they do not explain how the device was conceived or constructed. There are no known predecessors, no prototype versions showing gradual development. The Antikythera mechanism appears fully realized, as though the knowledge required to build it already existed before it was ever lost at sea. Even more troubling is what happened after. No comparable device has been found from antiquity. No texts describe its construction in detail. The technological capability it represents vanished completely from the historical record. Medieval scholars did not replicate it. Renaissance astronomers had to reinvent similar principles from scratch. For centuries, humanity's ability to mechanically model the cosmos regressed to levels far simpler than what Greek engineers had already achieved. Modern researchers have built replicas, but even with access to the original fragments and advanced imaging, debates continue over how certain components functioned. The mechanism remains only partially understood, a singular artifact that suggests ancient science reached heights we are only beginning to appreciate. The Dead Sea Scrolls. In 1947, a Bedouin shepherd searching for a lost goat near the Dead Sea threw a stone into a cave and heard the sound of shattering pottery. Inside, he found clay jars containing scrolls wrapped in linen, their surfaces covered in ancient Hebrew script. Over the next decade, archaeologists would discover fragments from nearly 900 manuscripts, hidden in 11 caves near the ancient settlement of Qumran. The Dead Sea Scrolls date from roughly 250 BCE to 70 CE, making them the oldest surviving biblical manuscripts by nearly 1,000 years. Among the texts were portions of every book of the Hebrew Bible, except Esther, along with previously unknown religious writings, community rules, prayers, and apocalyptic visions. What unsettles scholars is not just their age, but what they reveal about the instability of sacred texts. Biblical scripture was assumed to have been transmitted with near-perfect fidelity through carefully controlled copying. The scrolls proved otherwise. They contain variations in wording, alternate versions of psalms, and differences in prophetic texts that challenge the idea of a single, unchanged original. The preservation itself is remarkable. The scrolls survived because of the Dead Sea region's extreme aridity and the sealed environment of the caves. The materials used, parchment, papyrus, and even copper, were chosen with care, but degradation still occurred. Some scrolls are intact. Others exist only as thousands of tiny fragments that scholars have spent decades piecing together like a linguistic jigsaw puzzle. The community responsible for these texts remains partially mysterious. Most scholars believe they were produced by a Jewish sect, possibly the Essenes, who lived in deliberate isolation from the religious authorities in Jerusalem. Their writings describe strict purity laws, apocalyptic expectations, and a dualistic worldview, dividing humanity into sons of light and sons of darkness. What makes the scrolls so significant is their timing. They were hidden during a period of violent upheaval, the Jewish revolt against Rome, that culminated in the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE. Whoever placed these manuscripts in the caves knew they might never return. They were preserving knowledge they believed would be erased. And they were right. The texts remained hidden for nearly 2,000 years. During that time, entire branches of early Judaism disappeared. Theological debates were settled by force. Alternative interpretations of scripture were suppressed or forgotten. The Dead Sea Scrolls preserve voices that would otherwise have been lost entirely, offering a rare glimpse into the diversity of belief that existed before religious authority consolidated into the forms we recognize today. Even now, not all the scrolls have been fully published. Fragments remain under study. Controversies continue over access, interpretation, and the implications of certain texts. The discovery that was supposed to clarify the origins of biblical tradition instead revealed how much complexity was buried beneath the surface. The Code of Hammurabi. In 1901, French archaeologists excavating the ancient Mesopotamian city of Susa unearthed a black basalt stele standing over 7 feet tall. Carved across its surface in neat columns of cuneiform script was one of the oldest and most complete legal codes ever discovered. At the top, a relief depicted the Babylonian king Hammurabi receiving the laws from Shamash, the sun god and deity of justice. Below, 282 laws were inscribed in painstaking detail. The Code of Hammurabi dates to around 1750 BCE, during the height of Babylon's dominance over Mesopotamia. It addresses everything from property disputes and trade regulations to family law and criminal punishment. The language is direct and unflinching. If a man put out the eye of another man, his eye shall be put out. If you break another man's bone, his bone shall be broken. This principle, known as lex talionis, the law of retaliation, is often summarized as an eye for an eye. But what makes the code unsettling is not its harshness, it's the precision. Every law is conditional. Every punishment is specified. The code distinguishes between social classes, assigns different penalties for the same crime depending on the status of the victim, and includes protections for women, children, and slaves that were remarkably progressive for their time. What troubles modern readers is the implicit worldview. Justice in Hammurabi's Babylon was not about rehabilitation or moral transformation. It was about balance. A crime created an imbalance in the social order. Punishment restored that balance through equivalence. The system was mechanical, predictable, and publicly visible. The stele itself was placed in a public space so that anyone, literate or not, could seek out a scribe to learn what the law required. But the code was not the beginning of written law. Fragments of earlier legal texts have been found, some predating Hammurabi by centuries. What made his code different was its scope and its survival. The stele was looted by invading forces and carried to Susa, where it remained for millennia. That act of plunder inadvertently preserved one of the most comprehensive records of ancient justice ever created. The influence of Hammurabi's laws extended far beyond Babylon. Similar legal principles appear in later Mesopotamian, Hittite, and even biblical texts. The idea that law should be written, public, and consistent became a cornerstone of civilization itself. Yet the code also reveals the limits of that justice. It was not universal. It did not apply equally to all people. It codified inequality even as it sought to regulate behavior. Modern legal systems distance themselves from retributive justice, focusing more on rehabilitation and equality before the law. Yet the shadow of Hammurabi's code remains. The concept of proportionality in punishment, the idea that laws should be knowable and enforceable, the notion that justice requires consequences, all trace their lineage back to a stele carved in Babylon, more than 3,700 years ago. The Nebra Sky Disc. In 1999, treasure hunters using illegal metal detectors in the Rewrote forest in Germany unearthed a corroded bronze disc the size of a dinner plate. Embedded across its surface were gold inlays depicting what appeared to be stars, a crescent moon, and a circular sun. The object had been buried deliberately alongside bronze swords and axes in a ritual deposit dating to around 1600 BCE. The Nebra Sky Disc is the oldest known concrete depiction of the cosmos. It is not a map in the modern sense. It is a representation, a distillation of astronomical knowledge into a portable, symbolic form. The disk shows the Pleiades star cluster, the crescent moon, and what most scholars interpret as either the sun or a full moon. Later modifications added two arcs along the edges, believed to mark the angles of the sun's rising and setting at the solstices. A final addition, a curved band at the bottom, may represent a solar barge, a mythological vessel carrying the sun across the sky. What makes this artifact so unsettling is not just its age, but the sophistication it reveals. The creators of the Nebra Sky Disc were not simply observing the night sky, they were measuring it. The arcs marking the solstice angles are accurate to within a degree, suggesting the disk was used as a practical tool for tracking the solar year. This implies structured observation over generations, accumulated knowledge passed down and refined, and an understanding of celestial mechanics far more advanced than expected from Bronze Age Europe. The disc was not made locally. The copper came from the Austrian Alps. The tin likely originated in Cornwall, England. The gold was sourced from the Carpathian Mountains. This was not a provincial creation. It was the product of long-distance trade networks, specialized metalworking, and a society capable of dedicating significant resources to astronomical study. But the disk story does not end with its creation. It was modified multiple times over its lifetime, suggesting it remained in use for decades or even centuries. At some point, it was deliberately buried alongside valuable weapons, in what appears to be a ritual act. Whoever placed it in the ground did not intend for it to be recovered. They were removing it from circulation, perhaps because its symbolic power had become dangerous or obsolete. What troubles archaeologists is how isolated this discovery remains. No other Bronze Age artifacts from Europe show comparable astronomical sophistication. No texts describe the knowledge system that produced it. The Nebra Sky Disc represents a peak of understanding that left no clear descendants. If this level of cosmic awareness existed in 1600 BCE, what else was known and then forgotten? Modern astronomy often treats the ancient world as a time of superstition and crude approximation. The Nebra Sky Disc suggests otherwise. It shows that 3,600 years ago, in a forested region of what is now Germany, people were not just looking at the stars, they were reading them, and they were good at it. The artifacts we've uncovered do not fit comfortably into narratives of linear progress. They appear, function with precision, and in some cases vanish completely, leaving only questions. The Rosetta Stone unlocked a language that had been silent for over a millennium. The Antikythera Mechanism computed the heavens with gears that would not be replicated for 1800 years. The Dead Sea Scrolls preserved voices that were supposed to be forgotten. The Code of Hammurabi codified justice in ways we still reference today. The Nebra Sky Disc mapped the cosmos before maps were supposed to exist. What unites these discoveries is not their rarity. It's what they suggest about the depth of knowledge that existed and disappeared without warning. History is not a steady accumulation of understanding. It is punctuated by losses, interruptions, and rediscoveries. These objects are the remnants of entire systems of thought that barely survived it all. And they force us to ask, what else was known? What else was built, refined, and then erased from memory? How many other technologies are we still trying to reinvent?